Hey, welcome back to Mysterious Goings On and all the fits and snooze wherever you may be accessing the sound of my voice. Today's episode started as a lot of things do for me with Star Trek, specifically with a friend who looked at me like I'd committed a minor felony when I admitted I'd stopped watching one of the newer series. That moment turned into a piece I wrote about social identity theory, sunk cost fallacy, and the strange way group membership can quietly take over the reasoning you thought you were doing by yourself. It's not a political piece exactly, though if it makes you think about your politics, that's probably not an accident. So, here's We Before Me. I grew up on Star Trek. Not casually, religiously. Syndicated reruns after school, the animated series, the films, then The Next Generation, which felt like a reward for sticking around. Later, Deep Space Nine, which in my view was the best of the lot. After that, things got more uneven. If you spent any time around the fandom, you've heard the joke about test pattern Trekkies that put the Starfleet emblem on a blank screen and some people will watch it just because it's Star Trek. I used to laugh at that, but I also understood it. So when the newer series arrived, I gave them a fair chance. I wanted to like them. I watched enough to know, though, that they weren't for me. Then a friend asked me what I thought of one of them, and I told him I'd tried but stopped watching. Well, he looked at me like I'd washed out of Starfleet Academy. You, Mr. Star Trek? And that's when it clicked. I wasn't rejecting Star Trek. I was rejecting the idea that I was supposed to keep liking something because it belonged to my group. Somewhere along the way, I like this has turned into people like me are supposed to like this. And once you see that shift, it's hard to pretend it isn't there. In the 1970s, a social psychologist named Henri Tajfel ran a series of experiments that should have been trivial and turned out to be anything but. He divided people into groups based on meaningless criteria, preferences for abstract art, coin flips, and things that had no real world weight, then asked them to distribute rewards between members of their own group and others. Even with nothing at stake, people favor their own group. They didn't just prefer it, they protected it. That's the core of social identity theory. We don't just think as individuals, we think as members of groups, and we attach part of our self-worth to those groups without noticing when it happens. Once that connection forms, we sort the world into us and them, absorb the group into our sense of self, and begin measuring everything against it. Judgment bends to keep us aligned. Gradually, not all in a single moment, but steadily enough that we rarely notice the drift. You can see this everywhere once you know what to look for. In politics, people defend positions they would have rejected a few years earlier because changing your mind starts to feel like switching sides. In media, audiences don't just follow outlets, they attach to them, and criticism lands like a personal slight. In the workplace, departments compete with each other while the actual work waits in the background. Even in something as low stakes as entertainment, the pattern holds. Liking a show can quietly turn into belonging to a group that expects you to keep liking the show. From there, it gets harder to say, this isn't very good, or even, this isn't for me, without feeling like you're stepping outside the circle. It shows up in music, too. I'm a longtime Sting fan. The Police, the solo work, I'm here for it. He's one of the most inventive songwriters of the past century. The Soul Cages is nearly perfect, if you ask me. And yes, I still buy every album and give each one a fair listen. If I like it, it goes into rotation. If it isn't something I like, then it doesn't. And that may sound contradictory, but it really isn't. I've invested in his work for years, financially, culturally, even as part of my own sense of taste and identity. What I try not to do is confuse that investment with obligation. The fact that I've spent money, time, and admiration on an artist does not mean I have to keep pretending every new release is a masterpiece. Admiration is not a blood oath. At some point, you have a choice. You can defend every note because you're a Sting guy, or you can admit that loyalty does not require dishonesty. That's a quieter version of the same decision. You don't leave the group, you just stop letting it think for you. The same standard applies to my own work, and I try not to look away from that. I've written books that work. I've written at least one that doesn't. It was rushed, repetitive, damn sure not my best, and I think I knew that even as I was finishing it. The same goes for essays, podcasts, anything you do long enough. Some of it lands, some of it doesn't. If I expect people to be honest about the work I admire, I can't exempt the work I produce from the same accounting. The uncomfortable part is this isn't something other people do. You've done it. I've done it. You catch yourself defending a position a little too quickly. You feel irritation when something you're aligned with gets criticized. You realize you're not weighing the idea so much as protecting the affiliation. That's the moment to pay attention to. Once identity takes the wheel, reasoning tends to follow behind it, justifying the route. Group identity isn't the enemy. It gives people belonging, structure, a sense of place. The problem starts when identity outranks judgment, when being part of the group matters more than being right, when disagreement feels like disloyalty, and when stepping back, even briefly, feels like stepping out. Social identity theory helps explain why we cling to the group. Sunk cost fallacy helps explain why we keep clinging after the evidence changes. Between the two, people can spend a long time defending things they no longer genuinely admire simply because they have already given them so much. There's no clean fix. You can notice when disagreement feels personal, ask whether you'd hold the same view outside of your group, spend time with people who don't share your affiliations. Mostly, you can give yourself permission to step back without announcing it. My Star Trek friends still think it's strange that I don't watch every new Star Trek series. Maybe it is, but that moment stuck with me because it was so ordinary. No high stakes, no ideology, just a quiet realization that I didn't want my taste or my thinking outsourced to a label I used to wear without question. We like to think we're independent thinkers. Most of the time, though, I think we're just loyal ones. That was a piece from my Substack, All the Fits This News, where I write about culture, work, and the modern condition with varying degrees of optimism depending on the week. Link in the show notes. If this episode gave you something to chew on, share it with someone who you think would get it or someone who definitely wouldn't. Either way, I'd love to know what you think. And of course, you want to support the show, click the link and subscribe to the Substack. And paid subscribers especially are appreciated. So if you can do that, that'd be fantastic. Anyway, I'm Alex. Thanks for listening to Mysterious Goings On right here on All the Fits This News. We'll hope to see you next time.